Coming up on today's episode, we break down the new Shudder exclusive horror movie, Baghead.
And that now is your sole task. You cannot let her out of the basement.
Stay tuned. Welcome to Scary World, where we walk you through the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I am your host, Arturo Padilla.
Hi.
For those of you just joining us, we have one major rule around here: no spoilers. Now that we got that one out of the way, there are 5 categories: production, story, ensemble, horror, and legacy. Each category can score up to 2 points.
Showtime.
Per IMDb, the synopsis goes: a young woman inherits a run-down pub and discovers a dark secret within its basement. Baghead, a shape-shifting creature that will let you speak to lost loved ones, but not without consequence. Director Alberto Corredor returns to helm this feature adaptation of the 2017 short film of the same name. He does an admirable job with this film overall.
What is she?
She has the power to bring back the dead.
The overall look of the movie is good. The shots are well composed, especially in the very eerie bar where the majority of the movie takes place. The filmmakers did a good job building suspense and tension all throughout the movie. That's one of the highlights of this movie. It doesn't have a lot of blood and gore and the stuff that I enjoy here, but it does do a very good job making sure you stay captivated through the suspense and through the tension. And for that, they get a very big kudos, because this movie is not the greatest, but I think it does some very good things, including the building of the suspense. The movie is edited well, it's pieced together well overall. Everything looks nice and polished. There's nothing really technically wrong with this movie. There's nothing really great technically done with this movie either. But that being said, it does look visually pleasing, and they do good things throughout the movie to keep you engaged in spite of the story not being the greatest. And we will get to that in a little bit. And for production, this movie gets a solid 1 for the good things they did and the suspense they were able to kind of build and keep up throughout the entire movie. So kudos to you guys for that one. This script was based off the 2017 short film written by Lorcan Riley. The script itself was written by first-time feature writer Christina Pammies and one Mr. Bryce McGuire, who was responsible for Night Swim and the Night Swim short as well. The core concept of this movie is interesting.
This property comes with a special tenant. Lives in the basement. She's tied to the property.
But the script has its issues. The story becomes rather predictable quite early.
I need to see it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's 2000. Right?
And unfortunately, it exposes its very basic formula. It falls into the tropes that we expect to happen in this kind of movie, with these kind of characters interacting. And unfortunately, that does take away from the story quite a bit. On a positive note, the story is paced well. The acts do hit all the proper beats on the way to the third act. The third act itself is going to be very polarizing. It's going to make or break the viewer experience. I, for one, did like what was accomplished at the end of the movie there. That's why I'm a little disappointed with the overall package of the story, because the ending was such a positive note, and it was quite interesting what they decided to do at the end. And for story, for that very cool ending that I thought actually worked well, this story gets a solid 1. It could have been better, but it could have been a lot worse. I definitely seen a lot worse. I would have hoped them to kind of take it a little further with the concept. It was right for the picking, but they decided to just keep it very small in scale. That didn't work too well, in my opinion. The cast does a very good job with their flawed characters. The character development takes a turn for the worse in the second half of the movie, and it is a detriment and a hindrance to the story.
How do I control her?
This isn't something you can control.
There are characters here who are very smart, and you kind of relate to these characters because they have common sense and they're thinking straight, but then unfortunately these characters get dumb, and the dumber characters just get kind of dumber, and that's very unfortunate because you were treating us as a thinking audience, and then you kind of got lazy with everything with the characters. It's really a shame because the actors did do a very good job with these roles. I was very impressed by the entire cast. It is a small cast, but each and every one of them played a pivotal role to make sure we as the audience stayed engaged throughout, because as I said before in the previous segment, the story was not the greatest, but these characters were able to kind of really keep you engaged and deliver their lines well and make sure these characters, even though in my opinion they turned very dumb and they turned very much against their own characteristics, and it was really just kind of off-putting. But the actors did a good job with their roles, and they need to be commended for the work they did because it was very good. And for that solid acting work that was done with these very flawed characters, this movie gets a solid 1 again. When it comes to the blood and the gore in this movie, there is not much, unfortunately, and same goes for the kills. And it's a darn shame because the premise, the way it unfolds, it lends itself for not a high body count, but a somewhat medium body count, more than we get here. And that's really unfortunate because I wish they would have done like a little montage or something, or taken advantage of this witch's powers in a way where it would have either shown a flashback of her doing the evil stuff to the past owners of this location and other victims.
I want to talk to my wife. She only gives you 2 minutes.
But we just kind of hang out here in the present and don't really go further than the characters that we see in front of us in the story. And that is where my big gripe is, because there was an opportunity here to expand on the horror. On a sour note, there is a hefty amount of CG used here, and it doesn't look very good.
You can't kill her.
Now, on a positive note, the spooks that we do get here work. As I mentioned in the story portion and the production portion, there is very good suspense and tension built throughout this movie in order to make up for the lack of blood and the lack of gore. The spooks are good, the tension is good. There is a very good, scary, spooky vibe throughout the entire movie that works. And that makes up for the lack of the red stuff, which is unfortunate because I'm not asking for a lot of the red stuff or anything, but you could have at least done more with these very cool powers that this witch had. She would just ingest a piece of jewelry or a piece of or an item that this person owned previously, and she would transform into this person, you know, from the dead. And it was a good gimmick. I wish they would have taken it a little further. It reminded me a little bit of Talk to Me, of how it was communicating with the dead and everything. And I really wish they would have gone a bit further and expanded on the short story a little more than they did in this movie. And for horror and for the spookiness and the vibes that they were able to accomplish, this movie does get a solid 1 for this category. Conceptually, this film was interesting, but with a better script, it would have definitely popped a lot more than it did. That being said, I do really wish we had gotten more of an expansion of this very cool gimmick. It does lend itself to a sequel or a remake or reboot because of how everything is worked and written and the origins of this witch, which is very cool, I must say. I definitely enjoyed the origins, and they did a little flashback explaining how she got there. So it does lend itself to some more storytelling if they wish to do so. And if that's the case, I hope they have a higher body count and give me some more practical, please, because your CG sucked. That's hard to say. And for legacy and for what could have been, and the potential of what might be in the future, this movie gets a solid 1 for legacy. So to tally it up, Baghead received a 1 for production, a 1 for story, a 1 for ensemble, a 1 for horror, and a 1 for legacy, bringing its total score up to 5. This was an interesting concept that manages to stay captivating in spite of some egregious storytelling and character development and predictability that happens here throughout the second and third acts of this movie. With that said though, this movie did accomplish to get the creepy stuff right. The creepy vibes were there, the creepy suspense were there, the atmosphere was there. They accomplished the creepy, but unfortunately, the execution of the overall story does fall a little flat because of the simplicity, as I mentioned. It gets too simple. They got too simple with it. As I said before, they got a little lazy with the writing and didn't challenge themselves or the audience to a more complicated route to this third act. And for that, this movie is definitely, as we say on the morgue, a wait for it. It is on Shudder. You can watch it anytime. There's definitely something better to watch on Shudder coming up for sure. But this one could have been a lot worse.
Can you tell me what time it is?
And that's a wrap, folks. Thank you for watching Scary World. Don't forget to drop a comment down below and hit the thumbs up on the video. Most importantly, do not forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tell all your friends, your family, and their pets to come on down to YouTube and subscribe to CorpseFeed. We have spoiler-free horror movie reviews for you guys dropping every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we also have the official CorpseFeed podcast dropping every Tuesday wherever you get your podcast streams. We are everywhere, folks. And on the social feeds, we are everywhere. Please go share, go like, go subscribe, and go enjoy. And we will see you on Wednesday for another episode. Remember, it's a scary world out there, but we are here to walk you through it.
I just wanted to say goodbye.